I hired my ex's struggling catering company for an event and discovered they've been using my recipes to get famous, and now I'm shutting him down. My ex-husband, Mark, always had a knack for cooking but lacked the ambition to turn it into anything. When we divorced, I didn't think much of it. I'm a recipe developer and had built a small but solid reputation online. I mostly focused on healthy, accessible meals using fresh, local ingredients, which I often shared on social media, and had even self-published a digital cookbook. Mark always said my recipes were too complicated. After the divorce, Mark, surprisingly, started his own catering company. I didn't think much of it. I figured he had a couple friends throwing parties. So when my company needed a caterer for our annual holiday party, I considered giving my ex a shot. I felt a mix of curiosity and a little morbid excitement. I wanted to see what he had been up to, and part of me figured this was an olive branch to just move on, so I contacted him. Mark was thrilled. He accepted the job and was keen to impress. Leading up to the event, I was kind of excited. We had no contact since the divorce, but this would definitely be a way to break the ice. He and his small crew arrived at our office, setting up with all this enthusiasm, and everything looked beautiful. The setup was impressive and professional. And then they started putting out the food, which is when my jaw hit the floor. The first dish I saw was my roasted red pepper soup from my fall cookbook, served with my signature garlic croutons. Then came the kale salad with my lemon vinaigrette, followed by my butternut squash ravioli with sage butter sauce. My recipes. Every single one, not even tweaked or adjusted, but completely carbon copies of my work. I confronted Mark, barely able to keep my voice steady. He got defensive at first. But then he actually had the audacity to look smug, saying my recipes are just that good. They're what his customers want, and he's a businessman. Apparently, his company was booming. He was getting glowing reviews and gaining popularity. He even tried to act like he should be getting a cut from my book revenue for making them famous. My coworkers just kind of went silent when they all realized. I couldn't even respond to him. I felt numb. All I could say was get out. I paid for his services, as per our agreement, then went home and decided to look into everything. I had always posted my recipes with all rights reserved, so he was obviously breaking many copyright laws. Update 1, I spent the weekend doing some serious digging and consulting with my intellectual property lawyer, and discovered just how deep Mark's deceit goes. His website is literally a collage of my photos, descriptions, and recipe names. His social media is the same. He's basically built his entire business using my hard work, my creativity, and my recipes. My cookbook, which I spent 2 years creating from scratch, was essentially his business manual, step by step. He is even using the food photography I posted online. My lawyer sent him a cease and desist letter threatening a copyright infringement lawsuit. In his reply, Mark's lawyer claimed it was just simple inspiration and that we share similar styles. Then Mark texted me calling me a heartless woman and said I'm sabotaging a small business. How could I be so mean after everything? He even said I'm being jealous, which I found funny and made me laugh. I'm the original. He's just a bad copy. I did learn something new this weekend, though. My friend Sarah said that I should have seen his new sous chef, who was the person who told him about my recipes in the first place. So I spent some time looking through his posts. It's his new girlfriend. She's younger, an ambitious cook. And as far as I can tell, had the audacity to reach out to me to work together on a blog. I thought that was incredibly funny, but also an extreme red flag. I also found her social media, and she kept bragging about how much money she was making off of our hard work. This whole situation is just so ridiculous that I'm starting to look at it as comedy. I'm not sure what is going to happen next, but I won't be the one reaching out to anyone. I'm going to focus on myself and continue to create my own art. As for my ex, Karma will handle that. Update 2, I received a phone call this morning from Mark. He sounded hysterical and defeated. He's pleading with me to drop the lawsuit and give him back his business. He confessed that his girlfriend is no longer with him as she is taking her cut, and taking all the money he had made using my recipes. He tried to come up with a settlement or even a payment plan for me, but after all he did, it was still all about what he needed and what was good for him. I am not backing down. I am starting a lawsuit, and I will get all the credit and profits for my hard work. I also filed a civil suit against my ex for all the copyright infringement, and I'm also planning to sue my ex GF too. This will take some time, but I know I'm in the right. It's incredibly difficult when the person who made your self-esteem bad is also stealing your recipes, business, photos, and also planning to move on to even more diabolical things. I did find a silver lining, though, which was that all of this has resulted in a lot of new traction for me. I'm seeing my traffic double on my blog, and people are going wild over my cookbook. I have gotten a lot of new requests for collaborations, as well as some pretty big book deal offers, which are more exciting than this revenge. It is so awesome to see my hard work and effort pay off. I'm definitely focusing on the positive things, and I'm so excited to move on and start working on my brand again. I really am not worried about those two people anymore. It's finally over. I'm done. I've won. I just want to start cooking now. My brother faked having cancer to get me to donate my kidney to his wife's rich uncle. Now they're all ghosting me, and I will not forgive them ever. My brother, Liam, has always been a bit of a schemer, but I never imagined he'd sink this low. We've had our ups and downs, of course, but family is family, right? Or so I thought. About 6 months ago, Liam called me, his voice shaky, telling me he'd been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, some kind of kidney thing, and that his wife's uncle, Richard, was a perfect match but couldn't get on the transplant list because he was too old and didn't have enough money. Richard is filthy rich, but apparently the paperwork would take a while. Liam begged me, tears in his voice, saying Richard was his wife's only family, and that without the transplant, Richard would pass away. The only way to help was if I donated my kidney, and we could get the procedure done faster privately with better care, and that the procedure was very safe with less than a 0.00001% chance of death. He explained that his wife, Sarah, had been crying every day, afraid of losing him and her uncle, too. It was emotionally manipulative, to say the least, and I believed him hook, line, and sinker. I went through all the testing. It was very thorough, and surprisingly, I was a match. Liam sobbed and thanked me for saving two families. I'm not going to lie, I felt like some kind of a hero for a few days. The procedure was quick, they got my kidney in and all was well. Well, except I had a lot of pain for a few weeks which I am only just barely over. After the surgery, I tried to reach out to Liam and Sarah. I was met with complete silence. They stopped answering my calls. They would text or email when the twins needed a sitter, and that was it. They had stopped thanking me, stopped checking in. Over time, I figured they were busy, recovering, and that I should give them space. They started to pop up on my social media, living life as though nothing had happened. I started to get a weird feeling like all of it was a sham, and a few comments started to trickle in from close friends, questioning why Liam and Sarah never spoke about the transplant on social media, and that everyone has been commenting. That was what pushed me over the edge. I started snooping a bit more. Turns out, Richard never had any issues. He did not need a transplant. I found this out by doing a little bit of digging on my own. A few mutual friends confirmed they saw him enjoying life with Liam and Sarah. They had gone on cruises, were always at fancy restaurants, and buying luxury things. They never even asked about my recovery. I felt completely sick and used. I called Liam last night, and all he said was, "What do you want?" I asked if it was all a lie, and he just hung up. Then I started getting texts saying that I'm a piece of garbage for trying to get attention from a noble deed, how the surgery was only for me, and that I'm jealous of him. It was pure gaslighting, and ever since, nothing. They've all completely ghosted me like I'm some kind of disease. They knew I was the most generous person they knew. But did they really just do all that to me? I feel absolutely crushed and betrayed. I did all that for my family, only for them to make a fool out of me. I'm in so much pain, both physically and emotionally, and I don't know how to make it stop. It makes me feel sick knowing what they have done, and for the reason they have done it. It's like my love, support, and dedication is just a commodity for them, and it really hurts to realize that. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since Liam and his wife, Sarah, completely ghosted me after I confronted him about the kidney donation. I've been trying to piece together what was true and what was a lie. From what I could gather, it was all a lie. From start to finish. The cancer, the need for a transplant, the matching donor, all a concoction to get what they wanted. Money. I dug even more and had to go through private investigator because most of my information has been blocked from them, and I came to the conclusion that Richard is a billionaire, and from what I've gathered from social media, had a kidney transplant a few years back, from someone. He claimed to not even know. I'm trying really hard to process it all because my mind is a little jumbled. I called a lawyer to start the process for a case against him. But the lawyer said it's going to be hard because he won't admit that it was for money, so it will just go down as a valid medical procedure. I can try to get the money for expenses, but I am unlikely to get punitive charges. But we also found out that Liam has been making multiple financial withdrawals under my name over the past 6 months. It has been adding up, and that is going to be more evidence that I was in fact used for my generosity. So that's good news. My aunt suggested I make a Facebook post about all this, but I want to handle it with some dignity, so I told her to go with this suggestion. I also tried to reach out to other family members to share my feelings, and I got a couple of very supportive responses and also a lot of very negative ones, blaming me for everything. I feel awful. I truly believed that my family would be there to support me, but it seems as though most of my family, including Liam's parents, refused to believe Liam would be capable of doing something like this. But what about me? They are completely okay with me being used for their monetary benefit. It's hard to describe how it feels to be alone like this. I feel like I was living in this alternate world for the longest time and now it is over, and it feels overwhelming and disappointing. Update 2. I'm still in shock at how quickly everything has unraveled. After my last update, I did end up making a vague post about how I felt like I was manipulated by those closest to me, but that's about it. I've been busy with meetings with lawyers, getting all my evidence and financials together, and also I decided to try a support group. The first thing I did at a meeting yesterday was tell them what happened. When I was done talking, it turned into a complete train wreck. There were tears from others, gasps of disbelief, a lot of anger, and some people were shaking and trembling. Turns out they all had similar situations. A few were even scammed financially from their family members, and it made me feel incredibly validated but also very, very sad for humanity. My lawyer says that we have a good case for financial fraud because of the credit cards and bank accounts, and that I should expect that they will try to file for bankruptcy. However, he said I'm unlikely to get any compensation, but we will be making a very powerful statement by taking them to court. It turns out they did not expect this response from me, because they have been calling and texting nonstop with their excuses. Apparently Liam had fallen into gambling debt and used me to clean out. He apparently told Sarah that if he could use my kidney, he could get the money that he was owing back. He said he planned on giving me the money afterward, but the plan failed because I started contacting them, which made them realize that if they gave me the money, I would know everything. He also tried to argue that I didn't deserve anything from them because I'm a woman and my destiny was to be subservient to her man. So they will not contact me again if I drop the case. I will also hear that when Sarah has our baby, because, surprise, that also happened. She also did this for money. She thought that if she had a baby with Liam, the uncle would gift him more money. He has been calling nonstop since, and honestly, I think he wants me back after he's spent all that money. I have filed a restraining order for both of them and a lawsuit, and hopefully it will all be resolved soon. And if not, I'm prepared to live my best life regardless of them and move on from this mess. There's no amount of money worth giving to someone who could make me feel like I do when they think of me. No one can ever use me like this again. I don't care about the money anymore. I just want justice. My college friend betrayed me by sleeping with my boyfriend. Now she's my daughter's favorite teacher, and I'm forced to grapple with forgiveness or a never-ending grudge. It's funny how life throws you curveballs. You think you've moved past the petty dramas of your youth, and then boom, they're back, wearing a teacher's badge. In college, I had this friend, Sarah, who was practically my other half. We did everything together, or so I thought. Then came the big betrayal. I found out she was sleeping with my boyfriend, Mark, behind my back. It was a classic college heartbreak, and I swore I'd never speak to her again. And for years, I didn't. I moved to a new city, built a career, and eventually had my amazing daughter, Lily. Lily is now 8, a bright, bubbly kid who loves school. For the past few years, I've been so busy that I've been using the daycare program at her school. A few weeks ago, I get a notification that I need to come in early to pick up Lily, as her teacher is out sick. When I got there, I was greeted by a young teacher at the front door, and I instantly felt a cold sense of dread wash over me. Standing there, clipboard in hand, was Sarah. She looked up and her eyes widened as I immediately felt all the anger of our college betrayal come flooding back. We were both silent, only exchanging a brief nod as I took Lily out of the classroom. I was just so in shock that I needed to leave and think. I was still fuming about her after getting home, but I was very mindful of not letting my issues get in the way of Lily's happiness. Lily had mentioned before that she really liked her new teacher, how she was funny, understanding, and that she makes learning fun. The worst part is, that's not a lie. I've heard from other parents and even witnessed it during drop-offs and pickups. Sarah was a natural with the kids, and Lily was absolutely thriving in her class. It felt like salt in an old wound, seeing her be this amazing person while I carried the anger of her betrayal like an albatross. Update 1. So I did the mature thing, or at least that's what I told myself. I requested a meeting with Sarah at the school to talk about things like adults. I made sure to have a witness from the office so this wouldn't turn into some shouting match. When we met, she looked genuinely regretful. She apologized for what happened in college, said she was young and stupid, and that she'd always felt terrible about hurting me. Frankly, I was very dismissive and didn't give her any room to make a point or an excuse. I kept it very formal, to say the least. She said she never expected us to cross paths again, let alone have me be the mother of one of her students. She explained that she'd put in extra effort to be a great teacher because she wanted to make up for her mistakes, to help Lily thrive in school. I told her that Lily's happiness was all that mattered, and I hoped she could remain professional. I didn't offer forgiveness and left quickly without much emotion. Honestly, it felt horrible, and as much as I tried, I wasn't able to be cordial at all. I felt bad later as I saw Sarah make a point to see if Lily was okay, and from what I saw I just wasn't okay. A couple of weeks have gone by now, but Lily's been coming home from school, practically glowing, and telling me about all the fun things she's learning. She even made me this ridiculously cute card for Mother's Day that I could never throw away even if I tried. It seems she has really taken a liking to Sarah, and how could she not? From what I've seen, Sarah is the best teacher for this class. I'm caught between a rock and hard place, my personal anger with Sarah and having my little girl like her as a teacher. I still don't think I can forgive her anytime soon, but she has been nothing but polite and professional, while Lily is happy and doing well. Update 2. Well, things took a turn for the weird and definitely more personal. I was at a parent-teacher conference last week, and it was like walking into an alternate reality. There was Sarah. I was expecting a quick chat about Lily, but instead it turned into an impromptu therapy session for Sarah. She kept saying she always regrets what she did to me, that she's a changed person, and how it eats her alive knowing she hurt me like that. She then went on to say how she doesn't expect anything from me, she just wanted to make up for the past. I could tell it wasn't an act either. When she started telling me she got this job to give back to kids what she missed out on, I had a slight sense of understanding. I still didn't feel like forgiving her though, but it made me start to see her as a person again instead of just my college enemy. A few weeks passed and then last night, I had a dream. It was the night of that party where I found out about Sarah and Mark. But this time, there was a very noticeable fog in the middle of the room. Sarah is at a table with a couple of her friends talking about how it's all my fault and how I deserved this. The only people I saw through this fog was my ex, laughing at a corner. But Sarah, the one person I thought to be my best friend, was leading it all. This dream threw me completely off and I couldn't fall asleep even after trying. All the conflicting feelings I have about her now, how she is with my daughter, my anger and frustration about the past. But what felt more prominent was a weird sense of betrayal. It was like my subconscious was telling me that it isn't over, so I did something crazy. I texted Sarah. We talked for hours that night about everything and nothing. We covered everything that we've held in our hearts for so long. It was healing, scary, and surprisingly cathartic. She also seemed as confused about my feelings as I am about hers. All I know now is I have to really think if this relationship is as it seems. I still don't know how to feel about her being in my daughter's life, but I've started to see her in a new light. I also started thinking about the fact I never got a real apology from Mark. I think what bothers me most about everything is that I feel like we never had any closure with this situation. Just a couple of broken hearts and some bad friendships. Maybe this was a cosmic sign, I don't know, but I will definitely keep you guys updated. My mother's obsession with my dating life turned out to be her vetting potential spies in our town, and I am now rethinking my entire childhood. My mother always had a peculiar interest in my dating life, bordering on obsessive, really. It started subtly, with questions about who I was seeing, what their family was like, their background, and their beliefs. At first, I just chalked it up to her being an overly involved parent. I'm 26 now, and it's been like this since I started having actual boyfriends. It grew more intense as time went by, like she was vetting potential spouses instead of dates. She'd invite guys over for elaborate dinners, but then she'd be interrogating them with questions that I would never ask anyone, let alone a first date. It was exhausting and embarrassing. What are your political views? How do you manage your finances? It felt like she wanted to get to know these guys better than I did, if I'm being honest. At one point, I almost stopped dating altogether because of how draining her process was. It was easier to avoid guys than face her never-ending inquiries. One afternoon, she mentioned that the guy I was seeing at that moment, let's call him Ben, came from a family of disruptors. According to her, their family's business practices were somehow not aligned with the town's best interests. I was mortified because I wasn't dating a politician. She continued, saying he didn't appear to be one of us, and that his family were newcomers. These conversations made me feel as though I was dating for her amusement, not for my happiness, and like I was the only one oblivious to what she was doing. It came to a head last month when she accused my most recent partner, Michael, of being a spy. Michael was a new software engineer in town, and as soon as she found out about his work, she was all over him. She tried to get information out of him that he wasn't obligated to share, and I told her to stop. She accused me of trying to defend him and said that he was too perfect and that it was suspicious and was more suspicious when he wouldn't give her the answers she wanted. So he must be hiding something. The intensity of her accusations just felt wrong. In front of Michael, she called him a carpetbagger and implied that he was only seeing me to gather information about her town, and the way she talked it was all true. When he looked at me confused, I just stormed off and haven't spoken to her since. I felt like I was living in a badly written spy novel. After weeks of not speaking to her, I began doing my own research. I wanted to know what was going on in her brain. I figured if she was right, it might be worth exploring, and if she was wrong, I could prove her wrong. I went through old photo albums, journals, and anything that would give me some insight into why she was so controlling about my love life. I was really shocked by what I found. My mom wasn't just being an overbearing and paranoid mother. She had a history of investigating people who moved to our town. There were notes about specific individuals, their families, their jobs, even the cars they drove. I found an old scrapbook that had several names and details on them. At one point, she claimed that all the new town administrators were shady and foreign and listed them as possible threats. What I always thought were questions were just her vetting process. I even found an old newspaper article about a group of local activists who were protesting a construction project, and my mom had meticulously highlighted them all and listed them as potential enemies. It all started to make a lot more sense, and I could put two and two together. My mother wasn't just controlling about who I was dating. She was suspicious of everyone new in town. This whole time she wasn't vetting potential suitors. She was vetting for potential spies. This revelation made me feel like I was in a bizarre, small-town soap opera. It wasn't about me at all, and my love life was just an excuse for her to continue her weird obsession. It was just something she happened to use to continue her town conspiracy. I confronted her about it, and she didn't deny any of it. She said it's her responsibility as a long-term town citizen to weed out the bad seeds and that I needed to be more aware. She said our town is being invaded, and I was too naive to realize. She even said I'd thank her one day for it. It was a completely bonkers conversation. I told her I wasn't a part of any of this and that I didn't want her advice or comments. I told her that her way of thinking was borderline psychopathic. She just rolled her eyes and said I wasn't smart enough to understand. I packed up some things that I have had at her house for over a year and left. It's time for me to move out. It's time to let my mother live in her crazy bubble. I can't be a part of that anymore. I can't do it. I just hope she's happy protecting the town. My roommate's annoying daily vlogs saved me from a legal nightmare by documenting everything, and exposed my ex-landlord's greed, ending all his appeals. My roommate, Liam, 23M, has this habit of vlogging his entire day. I mean everything, from brushing his teeth in the morning to ranting about his video game wins at night. Honestly, it's been incredibly annoying, especially since we share a small apartment. I'm usually a pretty private person, and he's always waving his phone in my face while talking to his invisible audience. I work as a freelance graphic designer, which means most days I'm cooped up at home while trying to focus. Liam's constant chatter in his daily update videos makes it impossible to concentrate. I've asked him to tone it down, but he always says it's his creative outlet and that it helps him process his day. I just put on my noise-canceling headphones and try my best to ignore him. Little did I know this annoying habit of his would inadvertently save me from a complete legal nightmare. Last week, I got a call from my former landlord, Mr. Harrison, claiming that I had caused major damage to my old unit, and he was coming after me for thousands of dollars. I lived in that place for 2 years and had always been very clean and responsible. I was always paying on time, never caused issues with the neighbors, and left the place cleaner than when I moved in. When I asked him to clarify what kind of damage, he stated that they had found mold everywhere under the flooring, and that this meant they needed to replace it entirely. I immediately refuted, saying that the damage didn't happen during my tenancy, but he got nasty and threatened legal action if I didn't pay within a week. I was honestly shocked because I had always thought he was a decent man. After talking to a few friends, they told me I should hire a lawyer since I would be liable for anything they could prove I caused. When I called a few lawyers, they recommended that I find any kind of evidence to prove that I was not liable for any of the damage, and it would be in my best interest to collect it right away. And I had nothing. Then, a weird idea struck me. Liam, I didn't really know why I thought of him specifically. Maybe it was because he's always recording. So I went and asked to check all the videos for the last couple of years. Liam, being Liam, was actually enthusiastic about the idea. As I watched through the footage, I started noticing something. Liam was indeed filming his boring days, and thankfully, during one of them, he filmed me doing a thorough apartment inspection in order to take images for my damaged deposit. I had been incredibly meticulous, documenting all the corners, ceilings, bathrooms, and even moving furniture to get pictures of the floors. That video showed how spotless the apartment really was, with no sign of the damage Mr. Harrison was now blaming me for. More importantly, he filmed me checking for mold, under the toilet, behind the washing machine, under the oven, and I have a system for these kinds of things. I had moved the washing machine in order to wipe the wall and floor around it, and you would see that there was absolutely no mold. Liam, ever the professional documentarian, had gotten shots from every angle, and his videos were dated and organized. I downloaded all of the relevant footage and sent them over to my lawyer. Update 1, my lawyer said the videos were enough to get the case thrown out before it could even start. Mr. Harrison's lawyer apparently dropped the case as soon as he saw all the evidence proving I wasn't lying, and he knew he wasn't going to get anything from this lawsuit. Mr. Harrison was also fined for filing a false report. That was the end of that drama for me, but I was still very, very upset with the entire thing. My lawyer did suggest that I sue him for the stress and mental anguish I had felt during all of that, but I declined. I just want to forget it ever happened. Liam, on the other hand, was extremely happy and was almost hopping around because he was the reason I got out of all this. He did use the event as more content, though titling a few videos my vlogs saved my roommate from a lawsuit. Honestly, it was a bit cheesy and embarrassing, but I had to admit, he was right. He was a little annoying about this at first, asking me to give him a shout-out in one of his videos, but I decided to indulge him with a genuine thanks because he did deserve it. I never realized how useful those annoying vlogs would ever be in my entire life. I bought him some new video games since he was so happy and proud, and that seemed to make him even happier, so I think I'm going to start being more accommodating of his vlogging hobby, as a peace offering for constantly telling him how annoying it is, and so he doesn't become resentful towards me. Update 2. Things have been mostly normal since then. I mean, Liam is still filming his daily vlogs, and they're still mostly boring and kind of annoying, but at least he tones down the volume when I ask him to. And sometimes, his videos are oddly entertaining. One time he tried to cook a fancy dinner, but ended up setting off the fire alarm and having to order pizza instead, which we both had a laugh at. I did have to have another uncomfortable conversation with him last week, though. Apparently my ex-landlord is trying to appeal the decision, and now, all of a sudden, he needs to see the original copies of all of Liam's videos. I called my lawyer to see if this was even legal, since they have had copies for weeks. She said it was, and it would require another trip to court. Well, I'm not doing this again. I called Liam and told him everything and asked him if he was okay with doing all of this. I expected him to be nervous or uncomfortable, but instead, he was very calm and collected and said he has no problem going to court to testify about his footage. Then he made it a part of his daily vlog, talking about why it is so important to take videos of everything if you need to, because it can save you from injustice. He then showed snippets of the old videos and told his audience that they were able to save his best friend from a greedy old man. He said he was so happy that his videos could be used for good. Honestly, it was hilarious and so on brand, but I was grateful that Liam was doing his part to get through this headache for a second time. This whole thing has also made him get better with editing and has upgraded his video equipment with the extra money he's been making. This saga is really helping him out and improving his channel, so honestly, this is a win-win for everyone, except Mr. Harrison. He got the official summons today, which my lawyer delivered. He also finally managed to get the exact date my lease ended to be added to the document, which I didn't know was a detail they had missed the first time around. Update 3. Well, the hearing finally took place yesterday, and it was so boring, but it's finally over. My ex-landlord's lawyer tried to make Liam look like a liar. He tried to claim that we colluded together, and the videos were actually heavily edited to remove any sort of evidence of mold. That was when my lawyer revealed that the videos have embedded digital watermarks that can't be removed without completely ruining the integrity of the data and files. And all of these watermarks were all completely authentic. She also did some analysis on the files and determined they weren't touched at all, and that Liam was telling the truth the entire time. He tried to ask Liam more questions, but thankfully, Liam was able to stick to the facts. The judge made it clear that there was no reason to pursue the case, and also fined Mr. Harrison again for a second attempt at a false report. He did mention it was highly suspicious to try to come after me again. The judge made his final remarks, saying if Mr. Harrison tried any of this again, he could face a fine or, at worst, jail time. At the end of the day, Liam was basically considered a hero, which really puffed up his ego and made him more unbearable than ever. But I'm secretly happy, as his annoying vlogs actually helped me out twice now. This has made me reevaluate our entire dynamic and made me see how much he actually cares about me. I have also been incorporating his help into my daily routine and letting him know that I'm thankful for what he does. I mean, I would have had absolutely no leg to stand on if it wasn't for those incredibly annoying videos, and I guess I owe him more than a new video game now. This entire thing has been such a weird experience, but I'm finally ready to move on and leave it all behind, along with this stupid apartment too. And most importantly, all of this was proof that sometimes the most annoying habits can also be incredibly helpful.
My boss kept scheduling meetings during my lunch break, so I started a lunch delivery service that's now worth millions, and I have left my job. My boss, a stickler for efficiency, started scheduling meetings during my lunch break, claiming it was the only time everyone was available. It wasn't about collaboration or even pressing issues. It felt like a power move, a way to assert control. I work in marketing, and it became unbearable to try to get my work done, then think, oh gosh, time to be on again. My coworkers commiserated, grumbling about lukewarm coffee and missed meal times, but nobody was willing to say anything to his face. One day, I was looking at the growing pile of food I'd ordered to try to get my food before I had to jump back online. And I wondered why this wasn't also a business, why people would settle for cold food. I joked about it with my best friend, Shane, and he, half serious, said you could do it. You always make killer sandwiches, I laughed, but the idea stuck. I began experimenting. I perfected a few core recipes: a spicy chicken pesto, a roasted veggie and hummus, and an Italian cold cut that could withstand travel without losing their soul. I created a simple website with an online ordering system. Initially, it was just a couple of coworkers placing orders. I was making 5 or 6 sandwiches a day in the kitchen and getting them delivered before meetings started. I kept a detailed record of costs, and I priced everything affordably, but enough to cover the ingredients and also give a bit of a profit. My first month I made about $300 extra dollars, a great start. As demand increased, I needed help. I roped in my sister Dana, who had recently finished culinary school and had no job, and it was game on. Word spread around the office building, and I had other people in the building calling me asking if I could deliver to their floor as well. We started experimenting with soups, salads, and sides. Dana was amazing and took my basic ideas and elevated them with her expertise. I was spending most of my evenings prepping for the next day, but the side hustle was a welcome distraction. Soon, word spread beyond our building, and we started getting orders from neighboring companies. We needed to scale up. My apartment kitchen was no longer cutting it. Update 1. We rented a small commercial kitchen, hired a couple of delivery drivers, and launched a full-fledged lunch delivery service called No More Cold Lunches. I designed a new logo using our core values, which were delicious food, efficient delivery, affordable pricing, and no more cold lunches. And I kept the online ordering, but I hired a friend from a freelance business that I had met online to develop an app. My goal was to create something that was convenient and also didn't waste time. We focused on fresh, locally sourced ingredients, and our menu was diverse enough to cater to various dietary needs. We even started making keto and gluten-free options, and I even added a few smoothies to the menu. The app was a game changer. It was more user-friendly and made it easier to track orders. It was even easier to change our menu when ingredients were no longer in season. We were also getting a lot of bulk orders from businesses, catering small office meetings and staff parties. We had a dedicated team and hired more people, most of them college students who were willing to help. I also made a conscious decision that no one works when they should be on lunch break. Everyone had at least 30 minutes of a proper break. My team was happy, and that's all that mattered. No More Cold Lunches became more than just a side hustle. It became a legitimate, thriving business. The business was profitable, and Dana and I were able to live comfortably. And my kids were more than supportive of me, making sure they could still have their college money, or at least start their own. The guy in charge of ordering at my job became my best customer, placing multiple orders a week. Funny how life works. I was making enough income from this side hustle to start paying all the mortgage, all the utilities, and also build a life without depending on the job I hate. My boss. Well, he still kept scheduling those meetings, oblivious to the empire that was being built outside his conference room. Ironic, really. Update 2. The irony didn't escape me either. No more cold lunches was booming. We had 2 delivery vans, a dozen employees, and a wait list to become a preferred vendor. Dana, with her creative genius, even came up with new ideas to test in-house each week, offering a subscription option so that people wouldn't need to spend time ordering. My initial frustration turned into a full-fledged exit strategy from my corporate job. I presented my boss with my 2 weeks' notice on a Friday morning, fully aware of his meeting-filled schedule. I handed in my resignation, thanked him for all his leadership, and mentioned how it's bittersweet since it would probably take me some time to adjust to working with others. He was visibly taken aback. I watched him quickly flip through the documents I handed him before he said,
I thought my son had a video game addiction. Turns out he was running clinical trials for a new type of physical therapy, and I was completely wrong. My son, Kyan, has always been a bit of a loner, preferring the company of his computer to real-life interactions. When he started spending upwards of 10 hours a day gaming, I admit, I panicked. I'd walk past his room and see the eerie glow of the monitor on his face, the rhythmic click of the mouse, the hushed mutterings of character names I couldn't understand. It looked like a full-blown video game addiction, and my husband and I tried everything we could think of to get him to stop. We'd limit his screen time, which led to dramatic outbursts and whispered arguments from behind the door. I tried to bond with him by learning the game he played, and quickly found out they were complex and full of other players online. So then I tried getting him to go to therapy. He refused, saying he didn't have any problems other than with our nagging. We took his computer away and his grades slipped. He became increasingly withdrawn and stopped talking to us altogether. It was a nightmare. I felt like I was losing him. We tried an ultimatum saying if he didn't get a part-time job and hang out with people his age, he would never get to play games again. He agreed to a part-time job, but would not hang out with friends. He would come home from work, barely acknowledge us, and then be on his computer late at night. We were running out of options. It wasn't that he wasn't smart, he was always a student. It wasn't that he wasn't capable of doing things, because he always kept up with his schoolwork and worked at his new job. It felt more like he chose the virtual world over our own family. His relationship with his sister, Athena, started to strain. I would regularly catch her trying to talk with him or knock on his door while he was on his computer, but he would completely ignore her or slam the door if she was persistent. I started to feel helpless. I was failing as a mother and losing both my children in different ways. This continued for months until one evening. I was folding laundry when I heard him yelling in his room. I thought he was fighting with someone, but when I opened the door, I saw him completely immersed in his VR headset, contorting his body into a series of strange shapes. He was sweating and panting, and I could see from the monitor he was playing some sort of game, but it wasn't a game I'd ever seen before. It wasn't any of the ones he normally played, and it did not involve killing. The graphics were sleek and futuristic. When he finally took the headset off, he looked surprised, yet he was not irritated at me for opening his door like I expected. I decided to ask him what game he was playing. He looked at me with a mixture of apprehension and relief, then took a deep breath and said, "It's not a game, Mom." I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. It's a clinical trial. I'm testing new physical therapy exercises." He went on to explain that he was approached online by a developer of a new VR system designed to help patients with mobility issues and rehabilitation. He said he got picked because of his online gaming experience, quick reflexes, and in-depth knowledge of gaming software. They needed someone with good reflexes to work with the equipment in unexpected ways. Apparently, they liked that he was someone who wasn't going to follow rules or boundaries, because the program needed testing from a user like himself. The developers were looking for people who weren't going to follow predetermined patterns to see how far they could get the human body to push through these therapeutic exercises. He was one of the youngest testers and he gets paid well, but can't publicly share that information. Apparently, his movements were helping them refine the program. All those late nights weren't him gaming. He was running clinical trials, collecting data, and reporting feedback in exchange for the newest models. He had a full-on contract. He just wasn't able to tell me because of the confidentiality agreement. He didn't want me to take him off the program due to the amazing income he was receiving, which was going into his college fund. That was all he could say. The gaming wasn't an addiction, it was his work. My mind was racing, trying to take in all of this information, feeling a rush of relief, confusion, and a tinge of embarrassment. All those lectures, all that stress, all of it had been for nothing. I looked over at my son who sat there patiently, looking as if he was waiting for me to snap back at any moment. Instead, I wrapped my arms around him and apologized. Update 1. The apology was only the start of it. I ended up contacting the people who hired him. They actually invited me to their headquarters, so I took the whole family there. It was absolutely incredible, the technology they were developing, and even showed me his data and progress. It seems Kyan had been a valuable part of the program, and the lead engineer explained that his progress has helped the team understand the importance of user flexibility. They wouldn't have gotten as far without him. Apparently, one of the exercises they were trying to see how users were able to move in a virtual reality environment while simultaneously lifting real weights. This allowed to study a person's physical limits. I had the opportunity to try on one of the headsets, and they were able to put me through the motions of lifting boxes. In actuality, all I was doing was moving my arms. It was incredible and terrifying at the same time. I finally understood why he didn't want us to know. His movements were private and sometimes strange and not very pretty. He's in constant communication with the developers. At first, he would only be in contact with other people through his gaming headset, but now, he's working with the team on a one-to-one basis. They also encouraged him to pursue a degree in software development, which would be a great way for him to not only get paid while he's learning, but also make valuable contacts. I apologized for not trusting him, again, and explained that he really needs to tell us what's going on. He admitted that it was fun keeping it a secret and that his team told him they'll do anything for him so he can continue the testing. He laughed and said I was right to think it looked like he was gaming too much, since it wasn't really all that different. I finally understand what all that time was being spent on. He's not just some video game addict. He's a participant in a clinical trial using a new type of technology. It was a huge relief. He also got his computer privileges restored. Update 2. Things have been a lot calmer at home. After the initial shock and relief, Kyan is now trying to balance all his duties as student, part-time worker, and now participant in a clinical trial. This is honestly incredible, as most of the time I find him hunched over his books or in his room with the VR headset on. To see him engaged so much makes me proud and glad. As for his sister, they have finally started to talk again. The fact that he's no longer neglecting her for gaming has actually brought them closer, I think. They will watch a movie or something for 20 or 30 minutes before Kyan will retreat back into his room to continue his duties. As for his future, it's now something we regularly talk about. He is leaning heavily towards coding, computer science, software engineering, and AI, which also makes his grandfather, my husband's father, happy since he's also a computer scientist, albeit in a different sub-area. They now have lunch every Monday together to talk about all the nerdy things they're both into, and they enjoy it very much. Even I learned what a variable is thanks to them, but I'm still struggling on what a pointer means. This isn't just a boy in his room escaping from the world. My son is paving his own way. What seemed like an addiction was simply a path to where he's meant to be. And, as a mother, I'm just so relieved that my son is finally sharing himself with us, which is all I ever wanted. While I'm still weary of him spending that many hours behind a screen, it is a great step that what once was a wall between us is finally a bridge that we will continue to traverse together in the coming years.
My wife's been secretly attending law school at night, and now I find out it's because she's preparing to defend me in an inheritance lawsuit. My wife, Sarah, always had a knack for keeping secrets. We've been married for 15 years, and I thought I knew her better than anyone. We had a comfortable life, a nice house, and 2 wonderful kids. I worked as a software engineer, and she was a freelance graphic designer. Or so I thought. Our life took a sharp turn when my estranged grandfather passed away. I hadn't spoken to the man in years, not since he disowned my dad for marrying a woman outside of his religion. Now, out of the blue, I was named in his will, not as the sole beneficiary, oh no, but as a primary target in a nasty inheritance lawsuit filed by my aunt, his other kid who never left, who somehow feels like she deserves everything just because she stayed, who I barely knew. I figured the whole ordeal would be a big headache, a waste of time and money for lawyers and court fees, but other than that, I wasn't too worried. Until Sarah started acting strange. She started spending more nights working on her computer, and she seemed more distant. I brushed it off as her being stressed with my family mess, but then she suddenly started dressing nicer, almost like she was dressing for court, always put together in business casual. On a particularly busy Saturday, Sarah told me she needed to run to the grocery store. Then her phone rang. It was her mom, and her mom was freaking out. Her mom was upset that she missed a class and said if she didn't pass, she would regret doing this. I thought it was weird, and I jokingly said that maybe her freelance was starting to take off, and she was taking lessons to finally make her millions. And for context, Sarah's mom and mine were friends from a church group, and my mom did tell Sarah's mom, who just retired from being a school secretary, about me getting served. Which was great because why not? I asked about it when she got back, and she said it was nothing and quickly changed the subject, acting strangely. I honestly didn't think much of it. And then the court day finally came, and I had to meet a lawyer for the first time, so it felt pretty official. When the court doors opened, my lawyer turned to me with a smile, and it was Sarah. I felt so many things, but mostly confused and a bit betrayed. I was mostly confused, because at that moment, I realized my wife wasn't who I thought she was. It turned out that all those late nights weren't spent working on her freelance design career, but on law books. Apparently, for the last 4 years, she had been secretly going to night school to get her law degree, with a focus on inheritance law. She had been preparing to defend me this entire time. It was all incredibly surreal, seeing her walk up to the stand, her eyes sharp with a fire I didn't know she possessed. The way she demolished my aunt's arguments, dissecting the legal jargon and presenting facts I didn't even know existed. Her mom called me after this asking what was up and told me to be nice with my wife so she could continue representing me. But all of that came crashing down. I was pissed that she felt the need to hide all of this from me. I felt like she doesn't respect me or have an actual opinion about our future, that I'm just a pawn in her secret game. She didn't trust me. Why would she make such a huge decision in secret without telling me? When we went home, I let it all out. I told her that this wasn't cool and she should have told me. She said that she didn't want me to think anything of it and would want me to doubt her abilities. That she saw her best shot at defending me was by acting like I didn't know anything. After all, I am the one on trial. This led to another argument. I don't want a lawyer, I want a wife. Now I don't even know what the hell I want. It felt so good, finally learning the truth, yet at the same time I feel even more confused.